The massive doors of the council chamber opened slowly. Admiral Deho Kang walked through them with steady steps. His gray uniform was perfectly clean. His face showed no emotion. Behind him, Dr. Nari Bey and Captain Yuna Im followed quietly. They could feel thousands of alien eyes watching them. The chamber was huge. It looked like a giant circle that stretched up into darkness. Strange creatures sat in rows that climbed higher and higher. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some glowed with their own light. They were all different, but they all looked at the humans the same way, with anger. With disgust, in the center of the room was a platform. It was made of some kind of crystal that changed colors. This was where people stood when the council judged them. Deho walked to it without hesitation. His boots made soft sounds on the floor. Nari and Yuna stood behind him, ready for whatever came next. Above them, a voice spoke. It did not come from any mouth. It came directly into their minds. The voice belonged to High Arbiter Morden, an ancient being made of pure energy. The voice was old and tired. The voice said that humanity was charged with terrible crimes. They had attacked a peaceful convoy. They had killed 40,000 Velskaran people. They had broken the most important treaty in the galaxy, the treaty that kept peace between all species. Deho said nothing. He just stood there and listened. His silence made many council members angry. They whispered to each other in languages humans could not understand. But the whispers all meant the same thing. Humans were guilty. Humans were dangerous. Humans should be punished. Then a creature stepped forward. It was Counselor Thexera from the Velskaran Empire. The creature looked like a giant insect with a hard shell that shined with rainbow colors. It had many eyes that all focused on Deho. When it spoke, its mouth parts clicked together, making a horrible sound. Thexera showed the evidence. Holographic screens appeared in the air. They showed human ships. They showed weapons firing. They showed Velskaran ships exploding. The images were clear. The humans had fired first. The humans had destroyed the convoy without warning. Nari watched the screens carefully. Something was wrong. She had studied thousands of star maps. She knew how stars moved. The stars in the background of these videos did not match the timestamps. Someone had changed the recordings. Someone had lied, but she could not prove it. Not yet. She looked at Deho. He gave her a tiny nod. He had seen it too. They would need to be patient. They would need to be smart. Yuna stood perfectly still. Her hands rested near her weapons, even though she knew she could not use them here. Her cybernetic eyes scanned the chamber constantly. She counted exits. She watched for threats. Years of combat training had taught her to always be ready. The council voted to continue the trial. One by one, different species spoke. They all said humans were violent. They said humans could not be trusted. They said humans should never have been allowed into galactic society. Some even said Earth should be isolated, cut off from all trade, left alone in the darkness of space. Through it all, Deho remained silent. His face was like stone. Inside, his mind was working. He had prepared for this moment for months. He knew what was really happening. The Velskarans had planned this. They wanted to destroy humanity's reputation before the truth could come out. But Deho had his own plans. He had evidence they did not know about. He had allies they did not suspect. And most importantly, he understood something the council had forgotten. When you corner a human, when you give them no choice, they do not surrender. They fight back. High Arbiter Morden spoke again. The council had decided humanity would have 3 days to present a defense. If they could not prove their innocence, they would be found guilty. The punishment would be severe. Trade sanctions, technology restrictions, maybe even military occupation of human space. For the first time, Deho spoke. His voice was calm and clear. It carried across the huge chamber without effort. He said only one thing. He asked the council a simple question. Did they really want to know what happened at Epsilon Ridge? Did they want the truth? Or did they just want someone to blame? The chamber fell silent. No one had expected the human to speak with such confidence. No one had expected him to challenge them. Thexara's mandibles clicked faster, a sign of anger among Velskarans. Morden's energy form pulsed brightly. The ancient being seemed curious now. It told Deho that the council always sought truth. That was their purpose. That was their duty. Deho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. He said they would present their defense. And when they did, the council would learn something important. something they had forgotten. He said that humans never started fights they could not finish. The session ended. Guards escorted the humans out of the chamber. As they walked, Nari whispered to Daiho. She asked if he was sure about this. If he knew what he was doing. The risk was enormous. If they failed, Earth would pay the price. Daiho looked at her. His eyes were hard but kind. He told her that he had been sure of nothing since the war began. But he was sure of one thing. Humans did not bow. Not to threats, not to lies, not to anyone. They would prove their innocence. They would expose the truth, and then the galaxy would see what humanity was really made of. Behind them in the council chamber, the alien species continued to talk. They spoke of guilt and punishment. They spoke of making an example of the humans. None of them noticed the small smile on High Arbiter Morden's glowing form. The ancient being had seen many species rise and fall. It had witnessed countless trials. And something about these humans was different. Something interesting. For the first time in 1,000 years, Morden was curious about what would happen next. The trial had only just begun. The human quarters on Viridian Prime were cold and unwelcoming. The walls were bare metal. The lights were too bright. Everything about the room was designed to make guests uncomfortable. It was clear the council did not trust humans. Yuna moved through the room quickly. She held a small device in her hand. It beeped softly as she passed near the walls. She was scanning for listening devices. She found 7 of them. She left them alone. If the council wanted to listen, let them listen. They would hear nothing important. Nari sat at a table with her portable computer. She had copied all the evidence files from the trial. Now she was looking at them frame by frame. Her eyes hurt from staring at the screen, but she could not stop. She knew something was wrong with those recordings. After 2 hours, she found it. The stars in the background of the video moved wrong. The timestamp said one date, but the position of the stars said something different. The video had been recorded 3 weeks earlier than claimed. Someone had edited it carefully, but not carefully enough. She showed Daiho. He looked at the screen for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. This proved the Velskarans had prepared their evidence in advance. They had planned to frame humanity before the battle even happened. But knowing it and proving it to the council were 2 different things. A knock came at the door. Yuna moved to answer it, her hand near her weapon. A man stood outside. He wore the uniform of station security, but Daiho recognized him immediately. Lieutenant Ji-hoon Park, one of Earth's best intelligence agents. Ji-hoon entered quickly and closed the door. He looked tired. He had been working undercover on this station for 2 years, slowly building a network of informants and contacts. Now all that work was about to pay off. He told them what he had discovered. The Velskaran convoy was not carrying supplies. It was carrying weapons. Advanced weapons that violated 3 different council treaties. The weapons were meant for a group of criminals who wanted to attack human colonies. The Velskarans had planned everything. They would arm the criminals. The criminals would attack human worlds. Then the Velskarans would blame the humans for starting a war. It was a perfect trap. Except the humans had discovered the convoy before it reached its destination. Daiho's fleet had destroyed the convoy in self-defense. But the Velskarans were clever. They sacrificed their own people to make humans look guilty. 40,000 lives traded for a chance to destroy Earth's reputation. Nari felt sick. She asked how anyone could do such a thing. How could they kill their own people just to win a political game? Ji-hoon's face was grim. He explained that the Velskaran Empire was afraid. Humanity had advanced too quickly. In just 50 years, humans had gone from primitive spaceflight to building starships that matched the best in the galaxy. The Velskarans saw humans as a threat to their power. Daiho asked if Ji-hoon had proof, hard evidence that would convince the council. Ji-hoon pulled out a data chip. It contained everything. Intercepted communications, financial records showing weapons purchases, even video from inside the convoy showing the illegal weapons. But there was a problem. If they used this evidence, the council would know humans had spies everywhere. They would know Earth had been gathering intelligence on council members. Every agent Ji-hoon had recruited would be exposed. Some would die. Others would face trial as spies. Nari looked at Daiho. She wanted to ask if it was worth it. If they should sacrifice these people to save Earth, but she already knew his answer. She could see it in his eyes. The pain of command. The weight of impossible choices. Before anyone could speak, another knock came. This time it was louder, more formal. Yuna opened the door carefully. An old man stood there wearing expensive robes marked with Earth's symbol. Ambassador Minho Choi had arrived. Minho was Earth's most experienced diplomat. He had been there when humans first met alien species. He had spent 30 years building relationships across the galaxy. He knew more about council politics than anyone. He told them he had been speaking with his contacts. 3 council species had approached him privately. They believed humans were innocent. They wanted to help, but they were afraid to speak openly against the Velskarans. Then Minho said something that changed everything. The trial was rigged. The council had already decided humanity was guilty. This whole process was just for show. The Velskarans had bribed key council members. The verdict was predetermined. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. No matter what evidence they presented, they would lose. The system was corrupt. The game was fixed. Yuna spoke first. Her voice was hard and angry. She said they should just leave. Take their ships and go home. Let the council make their fake judgment. Earth would survive without them. But Daeho shook his head. If they ran, it would confirm everyone's suspicions. Humans would be labeled as guilty cowards. Earth would be isolated forever. They had to stay. They had to fight. Nari asked how they could fight a rigged system. How could they win when the judges had already been paid to convict them? Daeho walked to the window. Outside, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Billions of humans who depended on him to do the right thing, to protect them, to make the hard choices. He turned back to his team. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with determination. He said they would not play by the council's rules. If the system was corrupt, they would break the system. They would expose everything. The fake evidence. The bribes. The conspiracy, yes, it would cost them. Intelligence networks would burn. Agents would be exposed. But sometimes the only way to win was to flip the table over. To show everyone that the game itself was broken, Jihoon asked if he was sure. Once they revealed their intelligence capabilities, they could never go back. Earth would have to rebuild its spy networks from nothing. Daeho was sure. He said that humans had learned something important in their short time in space. When you corner a predator, it becomes dangerous. When you corner a human, they become unstoppable. The council was about to learn that lesson. They spent the rest of the night planning, organizing evidence, preparing arguments, building a case that would shake the entire council. They worked until morning came, fueled by coffee and determination. When the sun rose over Viridian Prime, the humans were ready. Ready to fight back, ready to show the galaxy what happens when you push humanity. The council chamber was packed. Every seat was filled. Creatures from across the galaxy had come to watch the humans be judged. Many had traveled for days just to see this moment. The atmosphere felt like a celebration. They expected a quick verdict. Guilty, then punishment. Counselor Thexera stood at the center platform. The Velskaran's shell gleamed under the lights. All of its eyes were fixed on the human delegation with what looked like satisfaction. It was preparing to deliver the final argument. The killing blow that would destroy humanity's place in galactic society. But then Daeho stepped forward. He held something in his hand. A small crystal that glowed faintly blue. A data crystal. He placed it into the chamber's main computer system. The holographic displays around the room flickered to life. The first video began to play. It showed the battle at Epsilon Ridge. But this was not the edited version the council had seen. This was the real footage, uncut, unaltered, from 3 different human ships. The video showed Velskaran ships approaching human freighters, civilian ships with no weapons. The freighters tried to move away. Then the Velskaran ships fired, not regular weapons, something else. Missiles that appeared from nowhere. Cloaked missiles. The council chamber erupted in noise. Creatures shouted in dozens of languages. Cloaked weapons were illegal. They had been banned for 200 years. Any species caught using them faced severe punishment. Thexera tried to speak, tried to claim the video was fake, but Daeho was not finished. He nodded to Nari. She stepped forward, her voice clear and professional. Nari explained the technical analysis. She showed how the Velskaran evidence had been edited. She pointed out the star positions that did not match, the timestamps that were wrong. She proved that the Velskarans had created their evidence weeks before the battle actually happened. More shouts filled the chamber. Council members turned to look at Thexera. The Velskarin's mandibles clicked rapidly. A sign of extreme stress. It tried to defend itself, tried to explain, but its words sounded hollow now. Then Una revealed the next piece of evidence. Security footage from Viridian Prime itself. Video showing Velskarin officials meeting with council members in secret. Bags of credits changing hands. Promises being made. Bribes being paid to ensure a guilty verdict. The chamber descended into chaos. Species that had been bribed tried to leave. Guards blocked the exits. Other council members demanded explanations. Some called for immediate investigation. The careful order of the council was falling apart. High Arbiter Morden's voice cut through the noise like a knife. The ancient being's energy form pulsed bright red with anger. It demanded silence. Slowly, the chamber grew quiet. Thousands of eyes turned to Morden, then to the humans, then back again. Deho was not done. He activated another file. This time 3 holographic figures appeared. They were witnesses. Merchants from neutral species who had been in the Epsilon Ridge system when the battle happened. They had seen everything. One by one they told their stories. They confirmed that the Velskarins had fired first. They confirmed that human ships had only defended themselves. They confirmed that the convoy was not carrying supplies but weapons. Illegal weapons meant for criminals. The final witness was a human. Captain Jiwan Ha appeared as a hologram. She was young, maybe 30 years old. Her uniform was scarred from battle. Her face showed the trauma of what she had survived. Jiwan described watching Velskarin missiles strike unarmed human freighters. She described the screams over the communication channels as civilian crews died. She described how her squadron had scrambled to protect the survivors, how they had no choice but to destroy the convoy before it killed more innocents. Her voice shook as she spoke. She was crying, but she did not stop. She told the truth, all of it. The council listened in absolute silence. Even the creatures who hated humans could not deny the pain in her voice. When Jiwan finished, the hologram faded. Deho stood alone on the platform again. He looked around the chamber slowly. His gaze passed over each council member. Some looked away. Others met his eyes with new respect. Deho spoke. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him clearly. He said humanity had come to this council seeking justice. Instead, they found corruption. They found lies. They found a system that had already decided to condemn them. He said humanity had defended itself. Nothing more. They had stopped a criminal conspiracy. They had prevented attacks on their colonies. And for this, they were put on trial, accused of crimes they did not commit, by the very people who were actually guilty. High Arbiter Morden began to speak. The ancient being was about to render judgment. But before it could finish, Thexera let out a screech. The sound was horrible. Filled with rage and desperation, Thexera shouted that this changed nothing, that the Velskarin Empire would not accept this verdict, that they had rights under galactic law, and then it played its final card. The Velskarin invoked Article 12 of the ancient laws. Trial by champion combat. One warrior from each side would fight. The winner would determine the verdict. If humanity refused, they would automatically lose everything. The council chamber fell silent again. Everyone knew what this meant. The Velskarins were famous warriors. They had never lost a champion battle. Their fighters were trained from birth. Enhanced with technology. Nearly unstoppable. Nari grabbed Deho's arm. She whispered urgently. This was insane. They had already proven their innocence. They did not need to fight. They could appeal to Morden. Surely the evidence was enough. But Deho understood what the rest of the council was thinking. They wanted this. They wanted to see humans humbled. Even if the evidence proved innocence, they wanted blood. They wanted a spectacle. And if humans refused, they would lose all respect. Morden's voice filled the chamber. The rules were explained. Each side would choose a champion. They would fight in the arena. No outside help, no mercy. Fight until one could not continue, or until one died. Deho had 30 seconds to decide. 30 seconds to choose between accepting the challenge or admitting defeat. He looked at Nari. He looked at Una. He saw the determination in their eyes. Before he could speak, Una stepped forward. Her voice rang out clear and strong. She accepted the challenge. She would be humanity's champion, and she would show the council what humans were made of. The crowd roared. The energy in the chamber shifted from confusion to excitement. They would have their blood sport after all. They would see if humans were as tough as they claimed. Yuna's face was calm. She had fought impossible battles before. She had survived when everyone said she would die. This was just one more fight. One more chance to prove that humanity would never surrender. The council chamber transformed in minutes. The crystal platform where Deho had stood was pulled away. In its place, a fighting arena rose from the floor. Energy barriers hummed to life, creating walls of crackling blue force. The arena was a circle, maybe 50 feet across. Enough room to fight, not enough room to run. The seats around the chamber filled quickly. Species that had left during the evidence presentation came rushing back. No one wanted to miss this. Bets were being placed. Voices rose in dozens of languages, all discussing the same thing. How quickly would the human die? Yuna stood at the edge of the arena. She was removing her uniform jacket, revealing the combat suit underneath. Black material that moved like cloth but could stop a knife. Her arms showed the scars of old battles. Her left eye glowed faintly blue. A cybernetic replacement from a fight 2 years ago. Deho stood beside her. He tried to speak. Tried to tell her she did not have to do this. That there might be another way. But Yuna just smiled. She told him that humans always found themselves in impossible situations. And they always found a way through. This was no different. Nari appeared with a medical kit. She checked Yuna's cybernetics. Made sure everything was working properly. Her hands shook slightly. She kept trying to think of something to say, some way to help. But there was nothing. This fight would be won or lost by Yuna alone. Minho arrived with information. He had been asking questions. Learning about the Velskaran champion. The news was not good. War Master Krelvox was legendary, 9 feet tall, covered in biomechanical armor that was part of his body. He had killed 17 champions from other species. He had never been defeated, but Minho had found one piece of useful information. All Velskarans had a weak spot, a small gap in their armor at the base of the skull, where the spinal cord met the brain. It was tiny, almost impossible to reach. But if someone could strike it, even a Velskaran warrior would fall. Yuna nodded. She had fought Velskarans before. She knew about the weak spot. The problem was getting close enough to use it. Krelvox would not make that easy. A horn sounded. The crowd fell silent. From the opposite side of the arena, a door opened. Krelvox entered. The Velskaran was massive. His armor gleamed like polished metal. But it was not metal. It was living tissue grown into plates harder than steel. In his hands he carried 2 plasma blades, weapons that burned with blue-white fire. One touch from those blades would cut through flesh like paper. Krelvox looked at Yuna. All of his eyes studied her. He made a sound. A clicking laugh. He thought this would be easy. Another weak creature to add to his list of kills. High Arbiter. Morden's voice filled the chamber. The rules were simple. Fight until one champion could not continue. No weapons beyond what each brought. No outside interference. The energy barrier would not allow anyone to enter or leave until the fight was over. Yuna stepped into the arena. She carried only a combat knife. A simple blade, sharp and reliable. Compared to Krelvox's plasma weapons, it looked like a toy. The crowd murmured. Some laughed. The human had brought a knife to a plasma fight. The horn sounded again. The fight began. Krelvox moved fast, much faster than something so large should move. He crossed the arena in 3 massive steps. His plasma blades swept toward Yuna in a deadly arc. She dropped and rolled, feeling the heat pass inches above her head. She came up running, trying to circle around to his back, but Krelvox spun with surprising grace. His blade came down where she had been standing a moment before. The energy weapon struck the arena floor. Stone vaporized. A crater appeared. Yuna realized she could not play defensive. Krelvox was too fast, too strong. Every second she spent running was another chance for him to land a killing blow. She had to attack, had to make him react to her. She charged straight at him. Krelvox's mandibles clicked in surprise. No one charged at him. Everyone ran. But this human was different. He swung both blades at her. She ducked under the first, twisted around the second. Her knife flashed out, striking at his knee joint. The blade skittered off his armor, not even a scratch. But it surprised him, made him step back. Yuna did not give him time to recover. She pressed the attack, moving inside his reach where the long plasma blades were harder to use. They fought across the arena, strike and counter, attack and dodge. Yuna's cybernetic eye tracked his movements. predicting where the blades would go. Her enhanced reflexes kept her alive, but barely. She was taking damage. Small cuts, burns from near misses. The crowd was screaming now. This was not the quick execution they had expected. The human was fighting back. Really fighting. Some spectators began to cheer for her. Others shouted for Krelvox to finish it. Krelvox changed tactics. He stopped trying to be clever, started using his superior strength. He bull-rushed Yuna, slamming into her with his armored shoulder. She flew backward, hit the energy barrier, fell to the ground. Pain exploded through her body. Ribs were broken. She could taste blood. Krelvox advanced slowly now. Confident. He raised his plasma blade high, preparing the killing strike. In that moment, Yuna remembered her squadron dying, remembered watching Velskaran ships tear through human defenses, remembered promising the dead that their sacrifice would mean something, that humanity would survive, would stand strong. She could not die here, would not die here. As the blade came down, she rolled, not away, toward him, inside his guard again. The blade missed her by inches, struck the ground where she had been, and in that moment of overextension she saw her chance. Krelvox tried to pull the blade back for another strike, but Yuna grabbed it, grabbed the plasma blade with her cybernetic hand. The energy weapon burned through the synthetic skin, melted the metal underneath. Agony shot through her arm, but her hand locked in place, holding the blade. Krelvox pulled, trying to free his weapon. The motion pulled him forward, off balance, and Yuna was already moving, using his own momentum, pulling him down. Her knife came up fast, found the gap. The tiny space at the base of his skull. The blade went in. Not deep, just enough. Krelvox's eyes went wide. His body went rigid. Then he collapsed. His massive form hit the arena floor like a falling mountain. Yuna stood over him. Her cybernetic hand was ruined. Her body was covered in wounds. Blood dripped onto the arena floor. But she was standing. She had won. The chamber was silent. Thousands of aliens stared in disbelief. No one had ever defeated Krelvox. And this human had done it. This small, wounded human had brought down the greatest warrior in the Velskaran Empire. Yuna looked down at Krelvox. He was still alive. Paralyzed but breathing. She could kill him. The rules allowed it. Everyone expected it. But she lowered her knife. She stepped away, showing mercy, something no champion had ever done before. High Arbiter Morden declared humanity victorious. The energy barrier dropped. Medics rushed in to help both fighters, but before anyone could celebrate, the station shook. Alarms blared. Warning lights flashed red. An attack fleet had just emerged from hyperspace. But it was not Velskaran. There was something else. Something worse. The real war was about to begin. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Holographic displays showed the threat clearly. Dozens of warships surrounded Viridian Prime, sleek vessels with no markings, no identification. Just weapons. Lots of weapons. Energy beams lanced out, striking the station's shields. The whole structure shook with each impact. Species representatives scrambled for the exits, pushing and shoving in panic. Some flew, some crawled, all trying to escape. The orderly council chamber became a stampede. Guards tried to maintain control but were overwhelmed. Deho stood in the middle of the chaos, perfectly still. His mind was already working, analyzing the situation, calculating odds, planning responses. This was what he had trained for his entire life. Not politics, not speeches. War, High Arbiter. Morden's voice cut through the panic. The ancient being identified the attackers. The Kethral Dominion, a hostile empire from beyond the galactic rim. The council had been negotiating with them for years, trying to maintain peace. Apparently, those negotiations had failed. A message came through on all channels. The Kethral commander's voice was cold and mechanical. The translation was clear. The Galactic Council was weak, divided by petty conflicts, easy prey for conquest. They demanded immediate surrender. Resistance would result in complete destruction. Deho moved quickly. He grabbed a council guard's communication device and started issuing orders. He told Yuna to get to the Defense Command Center. He told Nari to coordinate civilian evacuation. He told Minho to contact Earth immediately. They needed reinforcements, a council member shouted at him, asked what right he had to give orders. Who did this human think he was? Deho turned and looked at the creature. His eyes were hard as steel. He said someone needed to take command before everyone died. If the council had a better idea, he was listening. Silence. No one had a better idea. No one had any idea. The council had never faced an external threat like this. They were not warriors. They were politicians, bureaucrats. They made laws, not war. Una ignored her injuries and ran toward the command center. Her burned hand throbbed with every heartbeat. Her broken ribs made breathing difficult, but she had fought through worse. The station's defense forces were in disarray. She started organizing them, assigning positions, creating firing solutions, doing what humans did best. Fighting back, Nari worked with the evacuation, helping species she had never seen before, speaking in languages she barely understood. But fear was universal, and kindness translated across any cultural barrier. She guided them to escape pods, to safe zones, saving lives one at a time. The station's defense fleet launched, 89 ships against the Kethral's superior numbers. They fought bravely, but it was not enough. The Kethral ships were too advanced, too powerful. Council vessels exploded one after another, debris scattered into space. Deho watched the battle displays. He saw what others could not. The Kethral were not using their full strength. They were testing, learning the Council's tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. This was not a final assault. It was a probe, which meant the real attack was still coming. He gathered the Council members who had not fled, stood before them in what remained of the chamber. He told them the truth. The Kethral had come because they saw weakness. They saw the Council fighting among themselves, humans against Velskerans, species against species, and they decided it was time to conquer. He asked them a simple question: did they want to survive? If yes, they needed to work together. Every species, every ship, under unified command. Or they could keep arguing about politics while the Kethral destroyed them all. Thexera spoke. The Velskeran's voice was bitter. It asked why they should trust humans. What made Deho think he could command the combined forces of the galaxy? Deho smiled. Not a happy smile. He told them he had been expecting this attack. Earth's intelligence had detected the Kethral buildup months ago. That was why human ships had been near Velskeran space. They were not planning to attack. They were investigating the real threat. He activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy. Marked on it were dozens of points, locations where humans had been secretly deploying defense platforms, weapons stations disguised as research facilities. 5 years of preparation, hundreds of platforms, all waiting for this moment. The Council erupted again, but this time with outrage at humanity. They had violated treaties, deployed unauthorized military assets, lied about their activities. This was grounds for immediate expulsion. Deho let them yell. Let them express their anger. Then he asked another simple question. Would they rather file complaints or live long enough to file complaints? Minyo returned with news. Earth's second fleet was on the way. 23 warships under Admiral Taeyong Song. They would arrive in 2 hours. But the Kethral would not wait 2 hours. High Arbiter Morden made a decision. The ancient being had watched civilizations rise and fall for thousands of years. It had seen empires conquer and collapse, and it understood something important. The Council had become weak not because of any single species, but because they had forgotten how to unite against common threats. Morden granted Deho emergency command authority. All Council military forces would follow human tactical doctrine. All ships would coordinate through the human command structure. It was temporary, just until the crisis passed. But it was official. Deho wasted no time. He activated the defense platforms. 47 hidden weapon stations came online. They surrounded the Kethral fleet. Each platform carried experimental weapons, technology the Council did not know humans possessed, kinetic cannons that could pierce any shield, electromagnetic pulse weapons that disabled electronics, and one prototype singularity warhead, a weapon so powerful it could collapse a star. The platforms opened fire. The Kethral fleet was caught by surprise. Their ships scattered. Some exploded. Others tried to retreat, but Una had already coordinated fighter wings to cut off their escape. Human tactics, human weapons, human determination. For the first time, the Kethral were taking real damage. Their commander sent another message. This time the tone was different, less confident. They demanded to know how humans had prepared for this, how they knew the attack was coming. Deho did not answer. He just kept coordinating the defense, moving ships into position, timing attacks, using every trick humanity had learned through centuries of warfare on Earth. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humans might be young, might be new, but they were very, very good at fighting. The battle raged for hours. Slowly, the combined Council fleet gained ground. The Kethril began to retreat. Their formation broke. Some ships fled to hyperspace. Others fought to the last, but they were losing. Then the sensors detected something new, something terrible. More Kethril ships were arriving. Hundreds of them. The first fleet had only been the vanguard, the advance force. Now the real armada was here. Enough ships to destroy every Council world. Enough firepower to burn the galaxy. Even Deho felt fear then. Not for himself. For Earth, for humanity. For every species in the Council. They had won the first battle, but the war had just begun, and they were desperately outnumbered. He looked at the tactical display, at the massive Kethril fleet assembling for their final assault. And he made a decision. He told his communications officer to send a message to Earth. Tell them to activate Project Vanguard. Full deployment. Everything they had. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity had really been building. The holographic display showed the nightmare clearly. 347 Kethril battleships, 2,000 support vessels. Enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The combined Council fleet looked tiny in comparison. A handful of ships against an ocean of enemies. Every Council member in the chamber understood what they were seeing. This was extinction, the end of everything they had built. Thousands of years of civilization about to be erased. Some began praying to gods from 100 different religions. Others simply stared in silence, but Deho remained calm. His hands moved across the tactical controls, issuing commands, repositioning ships, adjusting firing solutions. His face showed no fear, only focus. The kind of focus that came from facing death many times before and choosing to fight anyway. He activated the full defense network. More platforms came online, not 47, hundreds. They had been hidden everywhere. In asteroid fields, behind moons, drifting in deep space disguised as debris. For 5 years, human engineers had been secretly building, preparing, knowing this day would come. The Kethril fleet detected the platforms and paused. Their commander sent a message, demanded to know how many weapons humans had deployed, how long they had been planning this. The mechanical voice sounded uncertain now, worried. Deho answered this time. His voice was broadcast across all frequencies. He told the Kethril commander that humans had learned an important lesson from their history. Peace was wonderful, but you could only have peace if you were strong enough to defend it. So humans had become strong. Thexera approached Deho. The Velskaran was furious. It demanded to know why humans had not shared this intelligence, why they had let the Council remain vulnerable. Deho turned to face the alien. He asked a simple question. Would the Council have believed them? Or would they have accused humans of warmongering, of trying to create fear? Thexera had no answer, because they both knew the truth. If humans had warned the Council 6 months ago, they would have been ignored, dismissed, maybe even punished for spreading panic. The Council only listened to evidence they could see, so humans had prepared in silence. Nari worked frantically in the medical bay. Dozens of wounded fighters were being brought in. Human, Velskaran, and species she could barely identify. She treated them all equally. Her hands moved with practiced skill, stopping bleeding, setting bones, saving lives. This was her battlefield, and she refused to lose a single patient. A young healer named Seoyun helped her. The girl was barely 20 years old. Fresh out of medical training, she had never seen combat wounds before, but she worked without complaint, following Nari's instructions, learning fast, proving that humans could adapt to anything. Yuna sat in a fighter cockpit. Her wounded hand had been hastily bandaged. The medics had told her she could not fly, that she needed surgery. She had ignored them. The Council fleet needed every pilot, every ship. She could fly with one hand. She had done it before. She led a mixed squadron. Human fighters, Velskaran interceptors, ships from a dozen species. None of them had trained together. But they followed her commands. Because she had proven herself in the arena. She had shown courage. And in war, courage earned respect faster than any treaty. The Kethril fleet advanced. Their formation was perfect, coordinated. They had fought 1,000 battles, conquered 100 worlds. They were professionals, and they were confident. Deho waited. Let them come closer. Let them commit to their attack vector. Then he gave the order. Every platform fired at once. Every ship unleashed its weapons. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds. The Kethril shields absorbed most of the damage. But not all. Ships exploded. Others spun out of control. The perfect formation broke apart. Chaos spread through their ranks. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they got a real fight. Minho coordinated with the remaining council members, getting them to commit their reserve forces, promising that Earth would protect them. Building trust in the middle of battle. It was the hardest diplomacy he had ever done, but it was working. Species that hated each other were fighting side by side. Admiral Taeyong Song arrived with Earth's second fleet. 23 warships dropped out of hyperspace exactly where Deho had predicted. They hit the Kethril fleet from the flank. Fresh ships with full weapons and shields. The Kethril formation collapsed further. Taeyong was a legend in Earth's military. She had fought in the First Contact War, had survived 3 ship destructions. Her crew loved her. Her enemies feared her, and she hated losing. She drove her fleet like a hammer, smashing into the Kethril line. Deho saw the pattern. The Kethril were organized around their command ship, a massive vessel in the center of the fleet. If that ship fell, the rest would lose coordination. He made a decision, a risky one. Concentrate all firepower on a single target. He sent the order to every ship, every platform. Focus on the command vessel. Ignore everything else. It was dangerous, leaving their flanks exposed. But it was the only way. They needed a decisive blow. Yuna led the fighter strike. Her squadron dove through the Kethril fleet, dodging fire, taking hits. 3 ships exploded around her, but she kept going. Locked her targeting system on the command ship's bridge. Fired everything she had. Her missiles hit. So did 1,000 others. The command ship's shields flickered, failed. Energy beams tore into its hull. Explosions rippled across its surface. The massive vessel tried to turn, to escape. But it was too late. The command ship exploded. A ball of fire that lasted for seconds before the vacuum snuffed it out. And immediately the Kethril fleet faltered. Ships broke formation. Some tried to retreat. Others kept fighting, but without coordination. They were still dangerous, still numerous, but they were no longer unstoppable. The battle raged for hours, ship against ship. The Council fleet took heavy losses, but they held, kept fighting, because they had something the Kethril did not. They had a reason to fight beyond conquest. They were defending their homes, their families, everything they had built. Finally, the Kethril began a full retreat. Their remaining ships turned and fled into hyperspace. They left their damaged vessels behind, abandoned their wounded, ran like the bullies they were when faced with real resistance. Deho did not order pursuit. His fleet was too damaged, too tired. They had won. That was enough. He made sure the Kethril could retreat, could carry the message back to their empire, that the Galactic Council was no longer weak, no longer divided, that humanity had unified them. The council chamber slowly filled again. Species representatives returned from where they had hidden. They looked at the tactical displays, saw the wreckage, the casualties, but also saw the victory. Against impossible odds, they had survived. High Arbiter Morden's voice filled the space. The ancient being spoke of humanity's deception, how they had violated treaties, how they had hidden military strength. But then Morden said something unexpected. It said that maybe the council needed that deception, that maybe they had become too comfortable, too weak. Morden declared the trial over. Humanity was innocent, more than innocent. They were protectors. They had seen the threat everyone else ignored, and they had prepared. The council owed them a debt, one that could never be fully repaid. One by one, species representatives stood, and they bowed. Toward Admiral Deho Kang, toward the humans. Even Thexera bowed, mandibles clicking softly. It was acknowledgement, respect, gratitude. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had changed it. 3 weeks passed. Viridian Prime slowly healed. Repair crews worked around the clock. Human engineers worked alongside Velskaran technicians. Species that had been enemies shared tools and knowledge. The station buzzed with activity. But it was different now. There was purpose. Unity. The council chamber had been rebuilt. But the design was different. No more circular arena with judges looking down. Now it was a round table. Every species sat at the same level, equal. No one above. No one below. It was symbolic. But symbols mattered. Deho stood before the council one last time. His uniform was clean again. The medals on his chest caught the light. Behind him, Nari and Una stood at attention. They looked tired, battle-worn, but they stood proud. They had earned their place here. High Arbiter Morden announced the creation of the Joint Defense Initiative. Every species would contribute ships and soldiers. They would train together, fight together, defend together, and humanity would have a permanent seat on the new Security Directorate. Morden offered Deho the position of Supreme Commander, leader of all galactic military forces. It was an honor no human had ever received. The power would be enormous, the responsibility even greater. Deho declined. He said the galaxy did not need a single commander. It needed cooperation, shared leadership. He proposed a rotating command structure, different species taking turns, including the Velskerans, because yesterday's enemies must become tomorrow's allies. The council was surprised. Humans could have taken control, could have dominated, but they chose partnership instead. It was a lesson. Power used with wisdom was stronger than power used with force. Thexera approached Deho after the session. The Velskaran moved slowly, almost hesitantly. Its many eyes studied the human admiral. Then it spoke. Not the formal speech of a council member, but something personal. Private Thexera admitted that the Velskaran Empire had been wrong. They had acted out of fear of human advancement, fear of losing their position. That fear had led to terrible choices. 40,000 of their own people dead, a conspiracy that almost destroyed the council. The Velskaran could not speak for the Empire, but it could speak for itself. And it offered an apology, a personal one, from one warrior to another. Deho accepted. He said that wars were started by fear, but they were ended by courage. The courage to admit mistakes. The courage to change. Nari was appointed Chief Cultural Integration Officer. Her job was to help species understand each other, to build programs that taught young aliens about cooperation, about the cost of division. She accepted eagerly. This was what she had always wanted, to build bridges instead of walls. Her first project was truth hearings. Every species involved in recent conflicts would speak openly, tell their side, listen to others. It would be difficult, painful, but necessary. Healing required honesty. Una received the Star of Valor, the highest military honor in the galaxy. Morden presented it personally. The ancient being spoke of Una's courage in the arena, how she had defeated an unbeatable enemy, how she had shown mercy when victory was hers. War Master Krelvox attended the ceremony. He had recovered from his injuries. His pride was wounded more than his body. But he approached Una after the presentation, gave her a Velskaran warrior's salute, hand over heart, a sign of deep respect. Una accepted command of the first Joint Defense Fleet, ships from 20 different species under her leadership, humans, Velskarans, and aliens whose names she could barely pronounce. They would patrol the borders, watch for the Kethril, protect all council worlds equally. Minho negotiated new treaties, trade agreements that benefited everyone, technology-sharing programs, cultural exchanges. The economic blockade against Earth was not just lifted, it was reversed. Species lined up to partner with humans, to learn from them, to work with them. Jihun was revealed publicly, the spy who had risked everything to gather evidence. He received recognition from the Council, and was offered a position in the reformed intelligence service, one that operated openly, with oversight, because secrets had their place. But so did Trust Sioyun establish the first multi-species medical academy on Viridian Prime, teaching young healers from across the galaxy. Human medicine combined with alien techniques, sharing knowledge that saved lives, building the future one student at a time. Reports came in about the Kethril. They were regrouping, rebuilding, but they were cautious now. The easy prey they had expected was gone. In its place stood a unified defense. They would think twice before attacking again. Project Vanguard's technology was shared with allied species. The defense platforms, the weapons designs, but only with those who committed to the Mutual Defense Pact. Trust had to be earned, one step at a time. Daiho prepared to return to Earth. His mission was complete. Humanity had proven itself, not through conquest, not through domination, but through courage and sacrifice. He would retire from active service, become an advisor, help guide the next generation. Before he left, Morden spoke with him privately. The ancient being asked how humans had known, how they had prepared so perfectly. Daiho smiled. He said it was simple. Humans had a long history of war, of fighting each other. They knew what conflict looked like, what it cost. So when they saw the same patterns emerging in galactic politics, they recognized it, and they prepared. Morden asked if humans would have shared their preparations if the Council had asked. Daiho was honest. He said he did not know, maybe not. Fear made people do strange things. But one thing was certain. Humans would always defend themselves, always stand up to bullies, always fight for what was right, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The ancient being pulsed thoughtfully. It said that history would remember this moment, the day humanity made the Galactic Council bow. Daiho shook his head. He said humans did not come here to make anyone bow. They came to survive, to protect their people. The respect they earned was a consequence, not the goal. Morden's light brightened. It said that was exactly why they deserved that respect. 20 years passed. A new generation grew up in a changed galaxy. Human and alien children learned together, trained together. The Joint Defense Academy became the most prestigious military school in known space. Former enemies became friends. Admiral Yuna commanded the frontier defenses. Her fleet had not fired a shot in anger for 10 years. The Kethril stayed away. Other threats were handled through diplomacy first. Force only when necessary. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was better. On Earth, monuments were built. Names carved in stone, the dead of Epsilon Ridge, the heroes of Viridian Prime people came to remember, to honor. The inscription was simple. It said they stood when others fell. They fought when others doubted. They proved that humanity's strength was not in domination, but in the courage to defend all who could not defend themselves. In the council chamber, now a true meeting place of equals, a new tradition began. Every session opened with a moment of silence, remembering the battle that united them. Then everyone spoke together. Words that had become sacred. Words that defined the new age. We stand together, or we fall alone. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans had taught them well. Not through lectures, not through threats, but through action, through sacrifice, through the simple refusal to surrender even when all hope seemed lost. That was humanity's gift to the stars. Not superior weapons, not advanced technology, but something more valuable. The knowledge that unity was strength, that different voices singing together made a better song than any solo, that the young species from the small blue planet had wisdom worth hearing. And so the story ended. Not with humanity ruling the galaxy, but with humanity teaching the galaxy to rule itself. Together, as it should be, as it always should have been. The day humanity made the Galactic Council bow became legend, told and retold across 1,000 worlds. Each species added their own details, their own perspective, but the truth remained unchanged. Humans did not come to conquer. They came to survive, and in surviving, they saved everyone.